Okay, now that we've read this amazing story by Toni Morrison, we're going to take some time to look at Twyla, the narrator. And the reason we're looking at Twyla and the reason we dig into characters at all is because this is one place where you can find some meaning in a story. Characters tell you a lot about basically um, the beliefs, the assumptions, the biases, the cultural norms, the values that are represented by the character will really give you a little bit of insight into what the story might mean in some way. So, what we're going to do is we are going to take this chart, and it's a 3-row chart. You have trait. We're going to look for a trait, basically something to describe the character. We're going to try and find the evidence that actually shows us that trait. And then you're going to make some commentary on it. You're going to actually tell us a little bit of your thoughts about that particular trait and that particular evidence. So let's take a look at paragraph 1 here. My mother danced all night and Robertus was sick. That's why we were taken to St. Bonnie's. People wanted to put their arms around you when you tell them you were in a shelter, but it really wasn't bad. No big long room with 100 beds like Bellevue. There were 4 to a room, and where Roberti and me came, there was a shortage of state kids, so we were the only ones assigned to 406 and can go from bed to bed if we wanted to. Now, in this paragraph, I'm already seeing some things about Twyla. Obviously, I don't know her name yet. I will find that out in the next paragraph. But I already know that Twyla seems kind of resilient. I mean, I know she's a kid. I can kind of tell that from the way she's speaking here. It's kind of a simple way of speaking, and it does have the tone of a kid. But she says people want to put their arms around you when you tell them you were in a shelter, but it really wasn't bad. And so on my chart here, I actually put that quote down, and I put the trait of resilient. But then you want to take one more step, because it's great that you found something that showed something about the character, but so what? You need to add your thoughts. And so I'm thinking it seems like this girl has been through a lot already. She was talking about this Bellevue that had 100 beds in it and a long room. Oh, I did that wrong. It's actually a long room with 100 beds. And so it leads me to think that she might have been through something like this before. And she seems kind of casual about it. Just her tone is kind of like, yeah. People try to hug you, but I'm fine. And then I'm going to the next paragraph, and so much information just in one paragraph. It didn't start out that way. So she talks about them getting along with each other really well, but it didn't start out that way. The minute I walked in and the Big Bozo introduced us, we're introduced to this new character, Big Bozo. We don't know who she is yet. Turns out to be a lady in charge of the orphanage where they are. The minute I walked in and the Big Bozo introduced us, I got sick to my stomach. It was one thing to be taken out of your own bed early in the morning. It was something else to be stuck in a strange place with a girl from a whole other race. And Mary, that's my mother, she was right. Every now and then she would stop dancing long enough to tell me something important. And one of the things she said was that they never washed their hair and they smell funny. Roberta sure did. Smell funny, I mean. So this paragraph leads me to think that this girl might be racist in some way. She definitely has preconceptions about this girl who's from a whole other race that she's being put in the room with. She talks about her smelling funny. It makes me think that she's been brought up to think that this other race is strange and kind of unusual. Um, at the end of this paragraph, you can actually see Twyla saying to the Big Bozo, "My mother won't like you putting me in here." And so we find out from the Big Bozo, she says, "Good, then maybe she'll come and take you home." So we find out a little bit about the Big Bozo too, and how she's kind of sarcastic and maybe not quite as sympathetic as some of the other people that Twyla encounters. And so what I'm going to ask you to do, and see, I have here my commentary. It did kind of surprise me to see this in the second paragraph. And so what I'd like you to do is go back through the story and take some time. You can go back through your notes that you took on the story as well, and pull some quotes that tell you something about those characters. And remember to look closely at the diction. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but I want you to focus on some of those questions. When you first read a story, we kind of get a picture of the characters, and we can start to feel like we really know them, and it gets more interesting, and sometimes we even come to care about the characters, and that comes from specific details. So what I'm asking you to do is to pull those details and go ahead and put them in evidence. Write the traits that you have, that you found for these characters, and then write your thoughts about that. And then we're going to spend some time writing a paragraph about what does this say about the values, the beliefs, the assumptions, biases, cultural norms. What is this saying about human beings, like what it means to be human being? What is it saying about society, this specific character and the way that she is represented?